All right, good morning. Good afternoon now, right? Yeah? So it brings me an abundance of joy just advocating the Flip the Script campaign and speaking publicly about what it means to my son and I, Deshaun James. This script is the visual representation of black fathers and black families in the district. It makes this campaign so powerful. In thinking about how I grew up in a really unique situation where my mom, Rhonda, and my dad, Ben James Jr., divorced when I was 5. And around the age of 7, my mom remarried to this gentle giant named David, whom I call Father. So I want you guys to remember that, Father, Dad. This, for me, was the first experience I can recall of a legacy of strong, black, committed, loving men and what that looked like. And then as I grew up, I realized that it didn't start with my father and it didn't start with my dad. It started with my grandparents. It was never a barrier and or a burden on behalf of my mom to let my father into my life. He was just there. He was always there. And while I lived under the roof with my dad or my father, my dad equally added value. Both men are determined, loving, affectionate, and strong examples to their children. Their example was a living and thriving framework for how I love my son. That young man right there doesn't look like that anymore. I, like so many, grew up hearing and seeing stuff in the news and in the media around what fathers are in the black community, but it wasn't what my perception really was. That's not what I seen. And as a single black father who's had the challenge and the privilege of raising a black man since the age of 2 in today's world, I'm compelled to push this campaign forward in any way that I can to flip the script. So my son's mother and her passing challenged me to blossom into the man that emulated the values and the principles of my dad, my father, and my grandfathers, as I spoke about earlier. Failure of not being the best dad that I could be was not an option, as I believe this is something that my son is going to pay forward in life. You know, I have some mentees here today, and I believe that that's something that they will pay forward in life. And for the sons and daughters of the men that are beside me, I believe that this is something that they will also pay forward in life. Now, I understand that not everyone has had my experience and has gone through my journey completely, but I also understand that there are many of us who have seen what has been so strongly represented in my life as strong men of color. It is my hope that Flip the Script inspires you to be an example by becoming a mentor to the fatherless and sharing your Flip the Script story. My challenge is for those who might have not had this experience to leverage the folks in here as resources as they are willing to just wrap their arms around you and love on you like I've been loved my entire life. We must choose to be the change that we want to see in this world, and with initiatives like this, it helps us flip the script by amplifying truth in our communities and encourage the cycle to be broken. Being involved with the 100 Black Men here in Greater Washington, D.C. and of America, and seeing the direct impact of our youth and the involvement of the countless brothers that are a part of that organization further supports why this campaign was created. We are here, flipping the script. I can't thank Mayor Bowser enough for her support in allowing a platform for the everyday man to display his truth in action, because you understand, more than all of us, that it's not just about us and this is just what happens. So with that said, I am honored and would like to introduce a person that I am just grateful, so grateful to lead this District of Columbia, Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Give Ben James a big round of applause for that lovely introduction and for being a part of this incredible campaign. We are here at the Howard University on Howard University's homecoming weekend in the Lewis Stokes Library to highlight our Flip the Script campaign. You are going to hear from a distinguished panel of fathers talking about their experience and why they felt so strongly about projecting positive images of Black fatherhood throughout our city, which have indeed carried throughout our nation. I want to acknowledge and thank our Director of Fathers, Men, and Boys, Director Jason Wallace. Let's give Director Wallace a big round of applause for his vision in bringing Flip the Script to all of us. We know how important images are. In the old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words is never more true than with this campaign. We know that these pictures combat negative stereotypes about men of color. We know what those are. We get to see an abundance of them on the TV, in movies, in literature, you name it. And it frequently focuses on Black men as criminals or absent fathers. And we know that there are present, active, engaged fathers that are raising children all over our city and all over our country, who are mentors and who want to be counted and want to demonstrate the hard work that they put into not just their children, but mentoring children throughout our city. This campaign comes on the heels of important conversations that we've had this year about maternal and infant health, and that has garnered the attention of our presidential candidates, including Cory Booker and Julian Castro, as well as many D.C. residents. We were very pleased this year. I think you know we've hosted for the second year a national conversation about maternal and infant health, and Jason led a very important panel this year on the role that fathers play in making sure Black women can have healthy pregnancies and deliver healthy babies. So today we want to continue to expand that conversation because we know that negative images and stereotypes are far-reaching. We also know that when parents succeed, our young people succeed, and this becomes a cycle, which was why my administration is very focused on making the investments in families that will lead to every Washingtonian experiencing their full potential. So I want to thank you again for being here, and I'm going to stop talking so we can hear from this wonderful panel, and Director Wallace will introduce the discussion. Thank you.
Before we get into the panel, I'd like to thank Mayor Bowser again. If you give a round of applause. This is the first time that any mayor in the country has done anything to this scale to combat implicit bias and the consequences thereof. Representation matters, and this campaign is about dispelling myths. It's about putting out positive imagery, but it's also about implicit bias and the consequences. And Black and brown men are consistently, overwhelmingly portrayed negatively in the media as either being criminals or not being fathers to their children, and which we know that to not be true. And to say that that does not have a direct correlation to implicit bias is to say that marketing and advertisement doesn't work, in which we know that it does. This is about Mayor Bowser's vision of ensuring that every single resident has a fair shot, whether it's for employment, whether it is at school, or with our police officers. And we are indebted to Mayor Bowser for this campaign, for something that I use, the diaper tax, was a round of applause for that. I have a 2-year-old. And the diaper tax has been something that has been a tremendous help. I remember a point in time in life where and a lot of people say that it's, it helps people to buy more things. In instances that I had in the past, it helped me to buy the thing that I was trying to buy. I remember having to calculate taxes in my head to see if I could afford the thing that on paper I could actually afford. So that has actually been amazing. And I'll say ensuring that Washington, D.C. becomes the 51st state. So thank you all for that. Moving on to our panel discussion here, very briefly, can you all introduce yourselves?
Silas Grant.
Officer Kevin Johnson.
Ivory Tolson.
Johnny Bailey.
Perfect. Could you share about, so they all came out to our photo shoot. We had about 16 dads participate. And can all the men that participated and women raise your hands and kind of shout out? I see some with their children here. And actually, I got to give a shout out to Nicole over here, who was pregnant at the time, and little Allie is in the stroller.
5 months later.
So, Johnny, start with you. What does the Flip the Script campaign mean to you?
Man, the Flip the Script campaign has been a tremendous opportunity for myself and my family. For me, I'm an only child from Petersburg, Virginia, and my mom and dad were in and out of my life. I was raised by my grandmother. So I experienced some of the pain of not having a father around at basketball games or at graduations. And I just never wanted my daughter to have to bear that type of burden. So the visibility, the mission behind the campaign just resonated with me, and it was a no-brainer to get involved and to try to push black fathers and black culture forward.
Perfect. Anyone else?
So just a quick story. That day of the photo shoot was the first day that my wife was not, well, the first weekend that my wife was not around. She had gone to a retreat, and before she got pregnant, she had paid for the retreat, and it's in Mexico, and she got pregnant, and we were like, okay, what are we going to do? And I'm like, you can go. Like, I'll be fine, right? That Friday she left, and that Saturday morning I was headed to the photo shoot, and that night was the first night that she was alone with me. And so if you look at our picture, our eyes are puffy because we were up all night until like 6 in the morning. And it's interesting, leading up to her trip, everyone kept asking her, are you going to leave her alone with Silas? And she's like, that's her father, right? And I bring that up because empowerment is important, right? Visibility is definitely important, but empowerment is important as well. And we have to use this campaign and other campaigns like this to ensure that people understand that fathers can make decisions. Fathers can be more than just in the room. You know, we can help shape the direction of that child. And I think for me, that 4-day period, being alone with my daughter, it shaped how I think and how I move as a man in my family.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Yeah. Perceptions matter. And, growing up, I was fortunate to have two father figures in my life, my biological father and my stepfather. But there were periods where I felt like my father wasn't everything he should have been. But when I think about the images that I saw back then, and everything from hip-hop to the 5 o'clock news was reinforcing this image of the absent black father. And so it made me more sensitive to the times when he wasn't around than all of the great things he did do when he was around. And so I think a campaign like this really reinforces, because nobody's perfect. And, there are a lot of situations where there are fathers that can't be in the same house with their children. But having positive images out there and having children being more sensitive to the times when they have their fathers and not just thinking that fathers of color just aren't around is very important. I think it could really move us in a positive direction.
Thank you. Officer Johnson, can you tell me your reaction when you first saw your face and your children on the side of a bus?
It was a great thing. Basically, being able to see, I grew up in D.C., born and raised in D.C., and so to be able to, basically my kids and me to be on a bus that I used to ride growing up in D.C. was very powerful for me.
Yeah.
And to see friends I grew up with, to see me on the bus, D.C. native, so it was a great thing, great experience, great feeling.
Yeah, and so being a police officer, it's a double thing, right? So fathers, but also a positive representation of police officers. What did you get anything from that?
I'm pretty popular in D.C. as far as I do a lot of, I apologize. I do a lot of outreach in the community, so I'm well known in the community. But it was great to have a lasting effect on people. For me not to be there and to see my image and them look at me and my kids and what we're trying to do for the community was a great thing. So now it's another speaking conversation where people actually say, I saw you the other day. It broaches a lot of conversations.
Cool. As I look into the crowd, I see several men here that participated in the Flip the Script campaign. So we had a call to action, and the call to action was, men and women, sorry. The call to action was to post up your favorite fatherhood photo and hashtag Flip the Script. So can those that participated please raise their hand here? Some over here in the back. And the mayor, you put a photo up too. Next question. Can you talk about the... Dr. Tolson, can you talk about the importance of the imagery and what that does for young black boys and young black and brown boys and see positive imagery of themselves?
Yeah, it's very important. And I wrote a book, published a book earlier this year called No BS, BS for Bad Stats. Subtitle is Black People Need People Who Believe in Black People Enough Not to Believe Every Bad Thing They Hear About Black People.
Longest title ever.
And I wrote that book because of all the negative statistics that was out there. The statistic that there are more black men in prison than in college. And when you redo that study, you find that there are 700,000 more black men in college than prison. And so I wrote a book just debunking all of those myths because I was sensitive to how these negative stats or the BS was being put out there and framing people's opinions about who black people are. And so this campaign is really like another version of that type of myth busting. Even though I was just debunking the stats, there's also these images out there that's also reinforcing the same negative message that those stats were reinforcing. So it's really complementary strategies.
Can one of you talk about the flipping the script personally, right? So I saw Commissioner Grant. You mentioned that was the first time that you were by yourself with your daughter. I saw a video of you actually. You were by yourself recently for the first time. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. So recently we traveled to San Francisco for a family wedding, and my wife Nicole was in the wedding. So naturally, she had to prepare and beautify herself with the ladies, right? So the baby was left with me, and I'm like, okay, 5 months in, this is like my first big opportunity to get that one-on-one, be a super dad. Can I do this? What do I do when she gets hungry? Where's the milk? That was the question, right? So,
have you ever spilled any milk?
Oh, absolutely. And I didn't cry, believe it or not, because we have like a crazy supply. She's been amazing with breastfeeding and pumping and making sure that we're all prepared for any moment when she's gone. But long story short, I went for a long walk on the San Francisco hills. I was wearing my baby Bjorn, so she's wrapped around me. We're going on a hike. I captured it on Instagram. And honestly, it felt very empowering. It felt like, wow, like I had been in the house alone with my daughter, but being out in the world with just me and my daughter was like, okay, you are really a dad, and if anything happens, it's your time to to shine, to be superhero for your daughter. So it really awakened me as to what the responsibility that I had as a dad, and I was very proud to walk around and share that moment online that I was just being a dad with my daughter, and it's something simple, but it was so empowering for me.
Commissioner Grant, can you talk about the response from the community? I think we've seen the most people hashtag and upload pictures of you than any other father part of this campaign. Can you talk about the response that you've gotten from the community?
To his point about being out with my daughter, we walk every morning before I go to work, and a lot of people in my community see me out walking with her, and I think that added to the connection with respect to the campaign and what they actually see from me in person. And so transparency, accountability, authenticity played a role in the fact that people that I know, responded the way they did in a positive way, because it's not like any of us are faking this role, right? We were really entrenched in our respective families and in their lives. And so I think for me, my daughter is now close to 8 months, and I want to be able to make sure that I'm transparent, again, authentic and accountable. And I think it plays a factor in how people see you when they actually see you doing what you say you live by. So
it's not just a campaign or a picture. It's actually you doing the work, being a dad when it's not sexy, it's not pretty, milk on your shirt, you're up all night, your eyes are puffy, but you're being a dad. And one thing I would highlight is the connection that I had with my daughter after that. I felt like she had a bit more trust in me as a dad, and that was special as well.
My last question is, what is your favorite part about being a dad? Everyone, popcorn. Who wants to go first? Go ahead.
My wife and I have been married 9 years, and we've always had a great marriage, but it's improved it even from there. We've grown so close, and words can't express, how much of a joy it is to have a daughter with her in particular. So while we want to empower ourselves, I think the campaign should also push the need for partnership with the mothers in these situations, because oftentimes we focus so much on the child and we don't focus enough on the person that we create the child with.
Got it.
The best thing for me about having kids are just hearing their perception, how they see life and how they see us, because the way they see things are totally different than sometimes we understand.
My favorite part is seeing development and improvement. Just this morning, I participated in parent-teacher conferences at my daughter's school. She's in the 7th grade. She's right there. But they went a lot differently this year than last year in 6th grade. And so, just seeing the improvement and, these milestones that go on forever. And the other thing is, the curiosity that children have, the why questions. My son is 6, and so he's at that, still in that why stage. Like, why does hair grow? Why is the sky?
Does hair grow?
Why is the sky blue? Right.
Why does it stop growing?
Who needs it?
And I think that childlike curiosity is one thing that adults need in order to be as smart as we could be. The most ignorant adults are the ones that can get fed anything or think they know everything. But the genius adults are the ones who are curious. And so that childlike curiosity keeps us closer to being genius.
That's deep, bro.
That is very deep. For me, I think it's the opportunity to break generational curses in my family where, like I said, my father was absent, and I had the opportunity to give my daughter access to rooms and spaces that I didn't have access to, or give her information that I didn't know when I was 1 or 2 or 5 or 10, and to just accelerate the progression of my family and to help create wealth as a family and as a community through my commitment to my family and to my daughter is something that I'm very excited about, just to change the narrative and really just to flip the script.
Thank you. I'm going to share mine because I got a kid too. So mine is the excitement that I have when my son learns. A father is a teacher, and when he says, "Yay, I got it," or "I did it," it brings so much joy to me. And for people that don't have kids, it's a little different, right? Because if you show your kid doing something regular, they're not that excited. But for me, it brings so much joy. And that, and then the closeness that my wife and I have, we've gotten so much closer just trying to figure this thing out together. So with that, I'd like to thank, again, Mayor Bowser for the Flip the Script campaign. I'd like to thank the men on the panel here, if you give them a round of applause, and then all of you that participated. And of course, Ben James in the back here. What I'd like to do now is we're going to do a quick photo with the men that participated. So if you participated in the campaign by uploading your photo, if you were in the Flip the Script, please come up and do a quick photo. The mayor's going to step out. We're going to rearrange the room for the next press conference. Thank you.